Well, earlier in the show, we heard from the victorious coach, Coach Kennedy, Joe Kennedy. He won a huge First Amendment case at the Supreme Court. As a reminder, 6-3 margin, justices ruling that a high school football coach had every right to pray on the field immediately after games. It is such a huge, long-sought victory. Lots of answered prayer here. You know, this has been going on so long that we actually interviewed Coach Kennedy on a show I used to do called The Brody File on CBN years ago. This is from 6 years ago. Have a look.
Of all the things that, I could probably get in trouble for, yelling at kids and making them, do push-ups too much or some of those kind of things, praying is the farthest thing I ever thought. I don't understand how the freedoms that are in the Constitution don't apply to people in America. So really, I'm standing up for that.
What a remarkable victory. I'm tongue-tied. That's how emotional I am. Let's bring in the founder of Patriot Academy, Rick Green, to weigh in on this, and also the Roe v. Wade reversal. Rick, look, I know heaven is better than here on earth for sure, but these last 3 or 4 days, they've been pretty darn good. I want to get to Roe in a moment, but first to Coach Kennedy. I want to get your reaction and some of your constitutional analysis.
David, it's an incredible few days, brother. This is upholding now First Amendment, Second Amendment, striking down made-up parts of the Constitution like Roe v. Wade. It's been an incredible few days. And just watching that clip where you interviewed him, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, what a great reminder to everybody that these victories don't always come overnight. We're so used to this microwave mentality where we want the victories overnight. 7 years in the trenches for Coach Kennedy to get this victory for the whole country and for people of faith across the country to be able to express their faith, even in the workplace, when they're not being distracting, they're not, creating problems, they're actually just expressing their faith. And what the court upheld here was the fact that, hey, we don't want a world where for you to be able to work at a public school, you have to not have faith. I mean, do we really want to run everybody out of the public square that doesn't have faith? This squeezed the last bit of juice out of the lemon test. I love it. The lemon test was a disaster from the beginning, another court-created philosophy. This squeezed the last juice out of that and said, people of faith do not have to go hide to express their faith. They're allowed to do that in the workplace or in a public place like this on the football field. A great victory for the First Amendment.
Very nice. I could talk to you a lot more about it, but we had Coach Kennedy on last segment. So I want to move on, though, to the reversal of Roe v. Wade. Now, I want to go through some of these falsehoods that the left has trotted out since the decision. First, let's start with the border czar. Have you heard of her? Her name's Kamala Harris. Here it is.
This is a healthcare crisis. Because understand, millions of women in America will go to bed tonight without access to the health care and reproductive care that they had this morning, without access to the same health care or reproductive health care that their mothers and grandmothers had for 50 years. This is the first time in the history of our nation that a constitutional right has been taken from the people of America.
I mean, she's like, hey, we've got a long history in this country, 50 years of murdering babies. I mean, come on. It's like she says abortion is health care, and yet people are stupid enough to believe it, Rick.
Yeah, David, you put your finger on it right there. Is this changing of words, this creation of rights? I mean, they make this stuff up as they go. So many falsehoods in what she said, even in just that short clip. Of course, there's not a rich history throughout American history for a quote-unquote right to abortion. That's exactly what Sam Alito lays out in the decision. That's what the whole Dobbs decision is about, is debunking the myths, debunking the lies that the left spread with Roe v. Wade and then with Casey and then with lies like what Kamala Harris just shared. Prior to Roe v. Wade, there was not a right to abortion in America. Most all the states did not allow abortion. What this case does in Dobbs is it returns it to the states, but it also returns us to pre-Roe, where we don't make up constitutional rights out of thin air. And that's the fun part about what Thomas says in his concurring opinion. He says all these substantive due process cases need to be reheard. We need to re-examine these things. What he's really saying is we need to get back to the actual Constitution and get rid of these crazy theories, just like we were talking about earlier, the Lemon test, and now substantive due process. David, let me tell you something, man. Alito, Thomas, these justices, they are tearing down the strongholds of the left. These made-up legal theories that for the last 50 to 60 years have undermined everything about the Constitution, created a courtstitution, as I call it, and now these guys are tearing down the courtstitution and returning the Constitution. That's a great day in America right there.
For sure. All right. So, Rick, now I want to do a bit of a deep dive on this op-ed by Democrat Senators Elizabeth Warren and Tina Smith. There are 7 things. I read this op-ed over the weekend. I said, oh, I've got Rick Green on Monday. We got to talk about this. So I'm going to kind of go through it here slowly. Here's the first quote. This is what they say in the op-ed. The Supreme Court has spoken. Roe is gone, but the Supreme Court doesn't get the final say on abortion. The American people will have the last word through their representatives in Congress and the White House. And I thought to myself, Rick, when I saw that quote, I said, exactly. Let the people decide through the representatives. Alito agrees with that. I mean, it's so stupid.
It's exactly what Alito says in the opinion. He's like, hey, the court was wrong 50 years ago to insert itself as a lawmaker, create a right to abortion in the Constitution, and then force that on all 50 states. He essentially says, no, this is something that should be left to the people and to their elected representatives. So you're exactly right. You're pointing out they don't even get it. They don't even understand. This is actually a restoration of federalism. It's actually allowing each state to decide. This doesn't outlaw abortion in California or Massachusetts. They're going to still have abortion. What it does is it prevents these unelected, unaccountable lawyers in Washington, D.C. on the U.S. Supreme Court from being the final arbiters, from being the ones that are making. This is what we've said for years. This is exactly what I teach in my Constitution classes, that the court should not have the final say on these things. They should not be making law. And that's exactly what Sam Alito and Justice Thomas both say in their opinions, both from the Bruin case on Thursday, where they're upholding constitutional rights, and then in the Dobbs case on Friday, where they're saying we're not going to make up constitutional rights and force them on people. This is a 1-2 punch of a restoration of the actual Constitution, and again, the overturning of the Constitution.
Well, Rick, if you're apoplectic now, have a seat, because I got a few more quotes. All right, let's go to this one. With its decision in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, an extremist Supreme Court has overturned nearly 50 years of precedent, stripping away the constitutional right to an abortion and ruling that the government, not the person who is pregnant, will make the critical decision about whether to continue a pregnancy. I'm sorry, I'm laughing through this, Rick. I'm saying, okay, so let me get this straight. So now you want the government out of a woman's business only when they have a chance to kill an unborn baby. This is when you don't want the government involved, but you want them involved in everything else.
That's exactly right. What happened to my body, my choice when it came to vaccines and masks? They didn't seem to care about my body, my choice on those things.
Right.
But certainly here, and again, the misnomer, what they're saying there is the court's making this decision for us. No, it's not. You're saying your body, you're saying you want your state to be able to decide, you're saying you don't want the court to decide. It's exactly what Sam Alito said. He said, this isn't my decision. This is a decision for the elected representatives in the state. So they don't get, and honestly, David, I think they're really trying to convince people across the country that this decision was something that it wasn't, that they want people to think that this decision by the court actually ended abortion in all 50 states. Almost no media outlet other than you and some of these conservative outlets are actually saying, actually, this just sends it back to the states. And another thing, I mean, this was actually saying, they're saying, oh, this overturns 50 years of precedent. Alito and Thomas make it very clear. Why should we uphold precedent if precedent was wrong? If we did that, David, we'd still be living under Dred Scott. Black people in America wouldn't have rights if we still upheld every precedent of the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court is fallible. And what the court said here is we're correcting the mistakes of the past, and that's the way it should always be done. Stare decisis does not mean that once the Supreme Court makes a decision, it's going to be that way from now till the end of time.
Right.
It means when the Supreme Court makes a decision, future courts should be able to look back and say, did you get that right? If you didn't, we're going to overturn it. And this court, my friend, is brave enough, courageous enough to overturn previous Supreme Court decisions. I think we've got a few very exciting years in the making.
Yeah, for sure. And stare decisis, it's cherry picking when it comes to stare decisis from the left,
right.
for sure. All right, Rick, I got more. I got five more quotes. Look at this one. If we sound angry and alarmed, that's because we are. This decision is devastating, and we have seen what happens next. We both lived in an America where abortion was illegal, a nation in which infections and other complications destroyed lives, a nation in which unplanned pregnancies derailed careers and livelihoods, a nation in which some women took their own lives rather than continue pregnancies they could not bear. And so here's the thing, Rick. I've got an idea. Look, I'm not trying to be callous here, but how about we talk to men and women about their worth and value? Okay. First of all, that's important. And not only that, how about adoption? I mean, they make it out to be just like if you have the pregnancy and you go through with it and you don't have the abortion, that you're going to be saddled with this child you don't want the rest of your life. And it's like there are other options. You can give it up for the baby up for adoption.
Yeah, David, this is a true conflict of worldviews and values, right? What we're saying is that there is value in human life, all human life, the mom and the baby. What they're saying is there's only value in the mom's life. There's no value in the child's life. And they're also lying to women and saying that you only have value in the workplace, that there is no value in being a mom. I have been so disgusted by the comments over the last few days of people literally demeaning motherhood, demeaning the idea of raising a child, the greatest gift that we have. There's no greater joy than raising children and grandchildren. And they have demeaned that completely. So it is a conflict of values. You nailed it. We need to once again speak over the American people and teach to the American people there is a wonderful value in human life, that these children are precious and that these children need to be saved. And that this idea that you only have worth in life if you can kill your baby and still have a certain kind of career, that's a lie from the left, and it absolutely needs to be debunked. And we need to celebrate the fact that we've got more life. And like you said, we need to be talking about adoption. We need to be talking about these pregnancy centers and these homes and doing everything we can to serve the mom. If it is an unwanted pregnancy or an unexpected pregnancy, let's do everything we can to come alongside that mom and come alongside that baby and meet those needs. We've been saying that for years, and now we have a wonderful opportunity to do that. There's going to be a lot of babies that we get to be a part of saving now and actually creating a great life for them. I'm so excited about this, as the American people should be as well.
Yeah, for sure. And Rick, by the way, we all are pro-choice. And you know why we're pro-choice? You can choose to have sex or not. You can choose to have sex or not. And you can choose to belong to like this hookup culture. I'm curious to get your take about the hookup culture nowadays. I mean, where is the moral leadership? We always hear all the time, we're always told that the conservatives are the immoral ones and the liberals are the ones that are preaching morality. They should be talking about the hookup culture that is going on right now among all of their folks. Well, I'm not just going to make this liberal conservative because it's everywhere. But,
sure,
get on your bully pulpit, get on your soapbox and do something about that.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, the whole abortion debate has always been about allowing for us to have a sexual revolution where there's no responsibility tied to sex, that you always have an out. If you want to have sex outside of marriage and somebody gets pregnant, you can go get an abortion and take care of it, and it's forgotten. That's been the whole purpose of abortion from the beginning. So you're right. I mean, let's talk about values. Let's talk about morality, and let's start encouraging people that, number one, if you were able to wear a mask for 2 years, including when you were jogging, how about wearing a condom? It's not, I mean, listen, there are ways to deal with these situations, but most importantly is what you said. Let's teach moral values and say, listen, wouldn't you rather have a life that's rewarding and not have to deal with the pain that comes from a lot of those bad decisions? Why can't we approach those subjects? Somehow that's off limits, but it's okay for them to run around with these insane signs that they're holding, these protests with these girls holding bloody dolls. I mean, the disgusting things that they're doing. Why can't we talk about good values and how much better your life will be if you do things God's way? God's way is not only right, it works best. The Bible's the best instruction manual on the planet. And when you do it his way and you have marriage and you get to have babies and grandchildren, trust me, there's the greatest joys in life in that. There's nothing you're ever going to do in your career that matches the joy that comes from being a mom or a dad. There's just no doubt about that.
Yeah, all right. I got to get to this next quote because this is the one that scares me. They all scare me. Here's what Elizabeth Warren wants to do. We urge the president to declare a public health emergency to protect abortion access for all Americans, unlocking critical resources and authority that states and the federal government can use to meet the surge in demand for reproductive health services. The danger is real and Democrats must meet it with the urgency it deserves. And Rick, here we go again. Create a public health emergency. The government can skirt the laws in this case. They can try to exert its authority by declaring an emergency. I've seen this somewhere. Was it COVID? Yeah, it was COVID. I mean, this is the Democrats' playbook. It's an emergency. It's an emergency. George Orwell. That's what happens here.
Yeah, they sound like a broken record. Unfortunately, David, it was a record that worked really well for them in COVID.
True.
So it's a formula they know works. They're able to scare people. They're able to use these disaster statutes and emergency orders and all of these things to get what they want. It's one reason we were screaming so loud 2 years ago when they first did it. We were saying, listen, this is a made-up power. They do not have, the federal government does not have the power under some public health emergency to infringe upon our constitutional rights or to override the Constitution itself. But they did it anyway. We didn't stop them. We tried, but there were very few governors that were willing to stand up against them on this. Yeah. And so, unfortunately, I think they've got a playbook here that worked really well over the last couple of years for them. Really bad for us in terms of liberty and in terms of the Constitution. But you can bet that that's going to be their playbook again, which is all the more reason why we have to become constitutionally literate. We have to understand our civics, understand the history on these things. Thank you, Sam Alito, for the history lesson in the Dobbs decision. He goes all the way back and gives us that history. That's very important. If we know that history, same thing with 1918 and Spanish flu. If we knew that history, we wouldn't have fallen for all the lies with the COVID pandemic. And same thing here. We need to know our Constitution and know the proper role of the federal court. Part of why I'm so giddy right now, David, is that these decisions, all three of these big decisions, are restoring the proper jurisdictions of government. It's reminding us that government doesn't get to do anything and everything that it wants, that in a constitutional republic, there are limitations. And so it's the theme that's running through the Bruin case, the Dobbs case, and then the Coach Kennedy case today. All of them are reflecting that same idea that there are constitutional jurisdictions. I'm excited about that. That's what we've been asking for years and years and years. And we finally have a court that's willing to do that.
You know, by the way, even though Biden is in office, you can make the argument that Trump is having still a lot more effective power based on the fact that he put those three Supreme Court judges, and we've got the guns, and we've got Roe v. Wade, now we've got Coach Kennedy. Trump's power is still here.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, anybody that says that these things would have happened without Trump has lost their mind. Listen, Donald Trump's willingness to appoint justices that were without question were constitutionalists and originalists, that is the biggest influence on the culture that's happening right now, and it's going to be that way for years to come. We would, right now, if Hillary Clinton had been president instead of Donald Trump, we would not only not be overturning Roe v. Wade, we would be actually cementing abortion up to birth at this point. We would not only not be securing constitutional right to keep and bear arms for all Americans, we would be infringing on that for all Americans, doing the exact opposite. We would not only not be allowing for people of faith to express their faith through this decision with Coach Kennedy, we'd be doing the opposite and saying you have to go hide in a closet if you want to pray. So the exact opposite of what the left wants is what we're getting right now, and it's because Donald Trump had the courage to appoint good justices and go to bat for them. I mean, he had to fight for all three of those appointees to get them on the court. And I want to also say thank you to George H. Bush for giving us Clarence Thomas on the court, and to George W. Bush for giving us Sam Alito. I'm telling you, Sam Alito and Clarence Thomas are dismantling the left's high places. They are tearing down the idols of the left, where they have used the court to remake America in their image. Right. They've been laying the groundwork for years, just as you were talking about Coach Kennedy, 7 years long. It took a long battle. Think about it. Thomas has been there 31 years in the minority, losing almost every battle that he was in, and now he's winning. Donald Trump taught us how to win, and the court was taking notes.
I've got less than a minute left. I want to get to this last quote because this is important too. They talk about creating a future in which women and their doctors could face a prison sentence for seeking or providing basic health care. This is a lie. Yes, doctors would definitely face a fine and imprisonment, no doubt. Women, Rick, will not be sent to prison or fined. I have not seen that anywhere. This is what the left does. I want to get your take on this. I've got about 45 seconds or less.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, every pro-life bill that I've seen in state legislatures across the country, it always goes after the doctor that's performing the abortion, not the mom that makes the decision. And listen, I mean, if a doctor kills your 2-year-old because you're unhappy with your 2-year-old, we would all want the law to go after that doctor. Well, if the doctor kills your baby in the womb in a state that says that that's illegal and that is murder, they absolutely should have the book thrown at them. So I say, you know, actually what the first part of that quote's absolutely right. The last part, absolutely wrong. I know of no statute right now that's being pushed in any state that goes after the mom. Everybody goes after the doctor that's performing the murder.
Rick Green, all the best to you. Fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, David.